This has been the longest challenge I have ever done in my life, but it's finally over. Hi, I'm not really red, and on September 15, 2023, I started a challenge that I proposed myself of speedrunning every single ending in Undertale. Before getting into the rules and stuff, if you aren't aware, there are just 3 endings in Undertale: Pacifist, Neutral, and Genocide. There are way more, 93 to be exact. Why are there so many? First off, it's good to know that different dialogues and different cutscenes will change what's considered an ending in this game. So the different sounds cause different characters and different scenes with Torio. Well, there are basically a total of 4 pacifist endings, 4 genocide, 4 hard modes, and 81 neutrals, because of the big amount of stuff that you can do to change the ending. Like, for example, staying with Toriel when you get to the surface for pacifist, or leaving Toriel, selling your soul before doing another pacifist or genocide, erase or refuse to erase the war in Geno, killing Metaton for papyrus for without papyrus, killing online for without killing online 10 or more enemies for some exile ending, family ending without Alphys, dating Alphys, but not going to the killing Toriel for a neutral online, killing online for the neutral Metaton for neutral papyrus, killing papyrus for the dog ending, or leaderless pacifist ending. It's actually a lot. Before I tell the tale of what happened in this challenge, I'm gonna start with the rules that I set. First, I must do every single ending individually and in order. With individually, I mean that I will ignore the fact that I could reload a save file to be able to see multiple endings, and I restart from scratch for every single run until completion. And in order means that if I'm doing an ending of whatever branch and decide to take a break and do a run that it doesn't correspond yet, like a genocide run while doing the pacifist branch, or even fail to do an ending, it will not count towards the 93 endings. The order that I'm going to follow is from this image right here, which was like the first thing that appeared on my Google search. I put a link to it in the description. I must do every run in the 1.05 version in English, so I could verify that I got the correct ending and I didn't know back there how to play on Japanese. Glitchless, because at the time I didn't know any glitches, and without the half-speed auto measure, because it was allowed midway through the challenge, and I just stick with what I had since the beginning. And with that out of the way, let's begin our journey with the 93 endings speedrun challenge. Hard mode is the easiest branch, which is kinda interesting. Even if it's really reset heavy, it's really quick since there's only 4 runs and there's only ruins available. Ruins individual level but harder. Great. The problem that I had with this branch is that I didn't even know how to speedrun hard mode. I didn't even know how to stop the timer. I stopped the timer when the Undertale hard mode's end screen appeared, which is not correct. Usually, in a hard mode neutral run, you stop the timer when the numbers appear on screen after betrayal killing Toriel. But there's an issue with that. There's this one ending, which is the hard mode with Toriel ending, the first one, which, as the name suggests, you don't kill Toriel. There will not be numbers on screen, so when did you stop the timer? I don't know. If there's someone that knows, please let me know. I did those 4 endings on the same exact day that I started it all. I had a time for one other run. However, I have no footage of this. I only have footage from run 47, 50, and onwards. Whoops. Not gonna lie, Exile Queen seems like a pretty interesting branch to route and play and stuff, but I really don't remember pretty much anything at all. I didn't record any of this, I didn't even write notes on this. The only thing I have is the threads and the font values, which we're going to look at later in the video. And I didn't do any research on the way to link into the challenge. The things I did were only vibes based. What I thought at the moment was fast, when in reality, my runs were bad. I think I did Kindergarten online with Astrofood and 5 seconds on me confidently, since I had more LV to do so. But if I was at like 1 LV, I wouldn't go for that stuff, since I could do them, but wasn't really confident and consistently making it out alive. I started doing so at about around 60, which goes to show that I've improved over the time. Nice. Also, I would like to mention, for most of this challenge, I grabbed the pie so I would get the attack and defense drop from Ascor, even though it's probably not worth the time, unless it's actually faster because I really suck at Ascor. But a fun fact I learned in April 2025 when I played Undertale Red and Yellow is that the pie doesn't count as a consumable. So I really don't know if I ended up saving time in the without consumables endings because of not knowing about this, or if I lost time. Well, going back to the Exile Queen branch, I guess I can also say that every single run were done under an hour and a half, and I did those from September 15th to December 28th, 2023. When I say this was really boring and trash and all that stuff, I mean it. I really hated this branch. Well, I still do. Why I hate it so much? You make me wondering. It's just that it's stupidly long. 34 endings. That, in reality, are just 6 different endings, but I had to do all those with challenge, all those without consumables, and so on. Do you wanna guess how long did it take me to do all 34 endings? Like how many days, weeks, months, years, with all breaks I took while having school and stuff? Well, let me tell you. It took me 8 months. To be fair, there was a lot going on in my life, like school, getting sick, a lot of coughing, and other stuff that I don't want to share. And also, I was demotivated and didn't really want to speedrun. I took my time, because it looked like this branch was never going to end, especially with those boring, lame, and repetitive endings being in the middle point of this challenge. Just look at this image. Boring, pacifist push shorter, and worse, pathetic. Just the same exact thing over and over again. There were only 2 interesting ranks, which now I'm going to highlight. First, there's ending 42, Betray Online with Daytime Challenge. What's interesting about this ending is that because this is a Betray Online with date, I need to kill something after I date online. Because I can't date online having killed something. But because this is a with challenge, I have to kill something that doesn't level me up. But the only thing that can do that is good old so sorry. So I just changed the time that show on my PC mid-run, and that's it. I was my first over 130 run, but it felt fun playing that fine, while speedrunning, of course. The other ending is ending 62, family ending without fish and without saving, which basically made me do 2 runs back to back. Why, you may be wondering? Basically, I needed to do the Alphys days for the with Alphys part of the family ending. And that's only unlockable after dating online and having fought Flowey. And because after the Omega Flowey fight, the game resets. You cannot go back and date Alphys because there's no save file. So I did an Alphys ending run. Basically, the neutral glitchless category, which is an aborted Geno because it's the fastest glitchless neutral ending, before doing the rest afterwards. This is what I called a mini soulless pacifist, because it was an aborted Geno and then an aborted pacifist, since I don't go to True Land. Fun fact I learned the hard way, you cannot even save in the neutral before the family ending with Alphys. I literally wasted 2.5 hours because of not researching data. Also, in both attempts I did, I died at MTT trying to do essay skip. Thank God there's a lot of saves, but that's big time loss, and it really sucks in the meta stuff. Yay. Something else I learned is that with bandage endings, for the longest time I did MTT5 while only using the bow stack, which is way too slow even though I'm confident in not hitting most attacks. The faster strat is to do the attacks like essay skip to get to 1 HP, while in the first turn using the stick and the raised posing. Like pose, like dancing and stuff. I don't know how to pronounce stuff. I'm sorry. I realized this in round 55 because I got hit many times in that run, and then realized that posing was a lot better and faster. Then I practiced that fight so I could do it quick. Well, actually, the family ending with Alfie's side of the branch was a bit more interesting than everything else that isn't ending 42 and 62, because you had to date Online and Alfie's after having fought Asgore and Flowey, and then before going to the true level, just fight Asgore again. It was interesting because of the double Asgore, that's it. There's also the Betray Online part of the branch, which I really regret, since dating Papyrus doesn't affect the ending, and I used it in every single run. I could have just not dated Papyrus and I would have been fine. Just like a minute of time lost. I could have challenged BB sooner, because in the ending 25, the Exile Queen ending, I got an 121 flat, and because I dated the skeleton, I ended up being too slow for beating that time. Also, one last thing. One interesting thing that happened during those 34, technically 35 when we don't talk about that failed ending. And on the first run I actually decided to record without being the halfway mark, and I have never seen before, is this thing I'm gonna show you right now. How can there be 3? What the heck? I don't know, I never knew that was possible, but alright. Pacific only has 4 endings. I loved running TPA glitchless, and this should have been the branch that I did the most. However, it wasn't really like that. I was really relieved of finishing the flop Pacific branch, but when it was time for Pacifics, I still felt kinda burnt out of playing Undertale, which really made me feel bad. I really didn't want to play, but there was always the voice in my head that told me, you should speedrun. Every single time that normally I would be able to run the game, I really didn't want to. However, I took my time and ended up doing those 4 endings in about a month. There's some crazy stuff that happened while doing those endings though. A highlight of that is that in my first soulless pacifist in the Sans fight in the genocide of the run, I received a ton of damage and I forgot to grab the instant noodles, so I entered the second phase with a low amount of health, and in the second attack I got down to 1 HP. I had to do the rest no hit, and I did it. Holy Jesus, I remember freaking out when I was in the battle. I mean, freakishly nervous. The 5 hours long no hit attempts I did mid flop Pacific branch, and last attempt being victorious paid off. Yes, I have done a no hit since. Another highlight is my first pacifist run. I messed up the recording. I had my Undertale hidden for the recording since it started the Mad Dummy fight. Whoopsie. Also, I didn't credit no hit that run. Kinda cool. After Pacifist, there are many branches that are 4 through 6 endings long. One of them even being 2 endings long. And some endings that aren't in any branch, like Dog ending and Alfie's ending. It was at this time that I took my stuff seriously and researched with the help of debug mode, and tried to find the fastest route for every ending that remained, and didn't already have that route since it's a category, like Alfie's ending and Geno endings. And later Dog ending glitchless was added to the leaderboards as a category, but it was after the challenge was over. The research paid off in the first branch of this T-neutral online branch. I finally beat the 121 flat that I set with Exile Queen ending and got a few new personal bests. I love playing the online branch. It felt way more different than the boring flop pacifist branch. Also, it was very quick. I ended up getting a sub 120 average for the branch, which is really great. Next, there were the MTT and Papyrus branch, which there's not too much to add. They were fun, but nothing really interesting happened. Something interesting about the 3 branches I covered is that they didn't take too long to finish. Online branch took about a month, Metaton branch took about less than 2 weeks, if we exclude the break time between branches, and Papyrus branch took only 4 days. That's crazy. Something fun that happened is that on December 22nd, 2024, I completed 5 runs, obviously having some breaks. That session started with the knocking endings and finished with the second yellow run. I was in autopilot for most of the runs and I decided a lot on the second yellow run, but it was really fun. And really something that I haven't done ever. That day alone had about 6 hours of Undertale completed runs. That's insane! It was also the 8th day in a row playing the game, finally beating my 6-day streaks from the Exile Queen branch. The streak didn't get to 9 days because of Christmas was about to start and stuff, so I was a bit busy with that, and also recovering from that massive amount of time that I play Undertale. I want to quickly point out that I got the doggo with the Snowdrix attack on my /neutral glitch last run, which is kind of funny. It was the first time that I ever saw that. Continuing on, at last, the final 2 runs were waiting, and I decided to do the first Soulless Lleno on Christmas Day at 12 AM, which was absolutely fun to be dying of sleep while gambling the heck out of the speedrun. Then December 26th rolls around, and I get the time to do the final run, and I finally completed. To be honest, I just felt slight satisfaction after finishing the thing. I was more excited to finish the challenge while trying to sleep than when I actually finished it. It really felt like that. It was weird. The days after, I went to a quick vacation, and then when I came back home, I really felt different. Finally, the thought of always needed to speedrun so I could finish the challenge was disappearing. And now there was an emptiness feeling. Is this really over? Did I actually finish? I did? It really doesn't feel like it, but I guess I can rest. Let's look at the final stats now. They'll exclude the hard mode endings since they're way too short. It took me almost 135 hours to complete 93 runs, with an average a bit over 130, which is kinda sad. I honestly wanted a sub 130 average, but it's okay. But if we include the hard mode endings, it's a 127. So, what if I just change that? I don't know, let me know what do you think I should count towards the average. My fastest time was a 107, making Alfie's ending the fastest neutral ending glitchless, which makes sense. The category neutral glitchless is literally Alfie's ending. My longest run was my Soulless Pacifist with Dorian at 3:16. It took me a total of 469 days to complete this challenge. Yeah, I realized this the day I'm recording the audio. That's just crazy. My average on each split is interesting. Just in case, my way of splitting is whenever I leave the room of the battle. In case of Papyrus, while having to do the date, is when I leave the room of the date. And in case of Ascor, I split when the game closes. Flow Pacifist was the longest branch, followed by Exile Queen, then True Pacifist, the Mentaton branch, the Non-Dying branch, the Lleno branch, the Papyrus branch, then Leaderless, the Dog ending, the Alphys ending, and the Harmon branch. Now for the fun events. From run 15 to 93, there were 29 ground number calls, 17 nothings, 9 gunner kids, 8 clown girls, 5 science calls and 4 Alphys calls, 2 nightmare war search, 1 gaster hallway, 1 gaster follower number 1, 1 gaster follower number 3, 1 unknown gaster follower because I checked the files and the font value 0 appeared, and 1 unknown font value because I forgot to check the value before selling the soul for the second time in the 93rd entry. I'm gonna link the full spreadsheet in the description and the routes I took in a Word document, and all local app data if you wanna check that out. The routes are probably really unoptimized, but I can't really change fast. Honestly, I don't even know if I changed anything after the run, and that is something I didn't do. I don't really think so, but whatever. I remember researching how to speedrun Neutral Glitchless Snowboard the Genocide, and I was the world record. I was like, this is faster to kill for the entire run. Goes to show that my decisions were not the best, but maybe they were for my skill set at the time. Some closing words for this challenge. I really think that it was fun, except the flop passive branch, and that I improved a lot while doing this. If anyone wants to try it out, I recommend that you try to find the fastest route for whatever ending you got to do, and I suggest doing them with a roulette or something, so that it's more random, so you don't have to sit and do the same exact thing 30 times in a row. If you don't want to do this, good! Thank you so much for watching. I want to credit the people who inspired me to do this challenge. First, Flowey the Flower. Yes, Flowey. Without Flowey saying those 4 text boxes in New Home Genocide, and my brother showing those screenshots to me, I wouldn't even have played the game. Next is Speezy, a YouTuber that does speedruns but more casually. He made a video about speedrunning Undertale GPA glitchless. I watched it a bit after I played the game. I thought that it seemed easy enough, and that's why. I did a practice run and then my first real run on September 8th, 2022. Which I didn't previously delete my save file, so it's not legit, but I loved the experience, so I continued speedrunning. Now I have over 200 hours of completed runs and over 200 runs. Next, there's Coryway, a Minecraft speedrunner. I saw his original 1K RCS run without resetting journey, his videos and his final documentary, and I thought that it was really cool, and that I wanted to do something similar. I kept that on the back of my mind. Now he's attempting to beat Minecraft 100,000 times without resetting, which is really cool. After that, I watched a true hundo run, and kept the 93 ending side of that speedrun on the back of my mind. When the Undertale's 8th anniversary was coming by, I combined 2 plus 2 and thought of doing this challenge. Originally, I thought of not resetting, but the idea was short-lived since of how reset-heavy hard mode is. Finally, I want to thank my friends for being with me for most of the journey. They were with me in a call for more runs. Without them, I would have just got bored really quickly and wouldn't have finished this. Also, shoutouts to that one friend who helped me with the sprites. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening to me yap about Undertale for over 20 minutes, and bye.